Hello and welcome to Round Robin. I'm your host, Robin McCormick with the City of Hampton. And today we're going to tackle one of our health topics for you. It's about colorectal cancer and how you can prevent it or at least do early detection. My guest is from the health department. Welcome, Meena Tamakloe.
Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for coming back. You know, nobody likes talking about cancer. It's a big, scary topic, and this one is a little more taboo than most. Is that, people don't like it.
That's right, it's not. So colorectal cancer pretty much is when there is growth in the rectum or in the colon. Now, as we know, the rectum and colon are both part of the digestive system. It is pretty much the large intestine, part of the large intestine. So if there's a growth inside the lining of the large intestine, then we have that colorectal cancer.
So there are some recommendations for screenings because it's not a growth that you're going to see or feel until it gets really, really big and problematic.
Exactly. Now, there are some signs and symptoms that you may, experience, but not everybody does. So that's why it's very important to do the screening. Now, some of the signs and symptoms will be nausea, vomiting, or constipation, diarrhea, or excessive weight loss without any reason. So just to mention a few. So if you have these, then you have to make sure that you go get tested. But there are several other risk factors. So especially if you're age 50.
Happy birthday, I know.
Yes.
Everyone goes through that. You turn 50 and it's like, gotta go.
That's right.
It's not what you want to do. Turning 50 is not what you want to do necessarily
Exactly.
either, although it's better than the alternative. So for most people, 50 is when you hit that first screening. But if you have certain risk factors or symptoms, what are some of those that you would go earlier?
Okay, so some of the other risk factors would be if you have a family history, so you have a close relative that has had cancer, colon cancer, you definitely have to get tested before age 50. And also if you've had like Crohn's disease or you've had ulcerative colitis, it's recommended that you get tested.
Well, you've probably been tested. That's probably how your Crohn's was determined.
That's right. So you have to make sure you get tested if you have
regularly.
these. Exactly.
Right.
And there are other risk factors that are definitely lifestyle, risk factors, behavior risk factors, and that's like alcohol use. So heavy drinking. So for men, if you drink at least 5 drinks at a time, or for women, it's about 4 drinks that's considered heavy drinking.
Okay.
So if you do that, then you have a risk for that. Smoking is the other risk factor if you smoke a lot. And then also high-fat diet and low-fiber diet. So like red meat, you eat a lot of red meat or processed meat.
Okay.
Definitely that puts you at risk. And also overweight, if you're overweight, definitely that's one of the other risk factors that can really put you in that
That puts
situation.
a lot of us on the risk list.
But there are a lot that can be done really that I would like to go through over, things that you can do just to reduce the risk factors.
Okay, well, let's talk just a little bit about the screening process because it is, I think a lot of people have heard about a colonoscopy and have heard, bad, scary things and think it's something to be avoided. It's not that bad. Really, it's not that bad, right?
No, it's not that bad, but usually, there are several tests. So one of them will be the stool. They will test the stool for blood, and there are different kinds of that test.
Much less invasive.
Exactly, and if they see something, then of course they can go ahead and do the colonoscopy, which is once every 10 years. So I know people are usually scared of that, but it's very important for your health to go through that, to get that screening done.
I've had actually several relatives and a good friend he was much younger than 50, who developed colon cancer, and Katie Couric made it her issue, and I think people are more aware of it, but it still is something that's easy to put off. I mean, I think I didn't do it when I turned 50. I had my screening maybe at 51, but you know, it's a hard thing to talk about, but can be a very aggressive form of cancer. I mean, it's so quick, especially in young people, and if you have are relatively young, you know, 40s, the kind that is, you know, that moves quickly. Wow. It's devastating.
It is. You're absolutely right. So that's why, you know, we have to create the awareness, you know, make people aware. You make sure, you know, you go for even physicals. Annual physicals are very important because sometimes when you're able to catch this early, like for example, not all growths or polyps are cancerous.
Right.
So that's why it is important to do the screening.
You could have precancerous ones. And even if you have to have surgery, I mean, there's a whole lot of intestine there. You can lose some of it and still function just fine.
That's correct.
But if it's gone too far, then you have a real problem.
Early detection is very, very important because that's a point where treatment is more than likely going to be successful. But if you wait till later on, then you know your chances are pretty much slim.
And that's where that annual physical comes in too, because your doctor can help identify your risk factors, can ask all the right questions, can, you know, remind you of the kind of screenings you're due for and when.
Yeah, absolutely right. So yeah, so screening is very, very important. Annual physicals are very, very important because with, like you said earlier, it's something that people may not be aware of, but it's actually one of the cancers that kills a lot of men and women in the United States.
And Meena, you said it disproportionately affects African Americans.
That's correct. So the population that's mostly affected is African Americans, and then you go to whites and then Asians. So, and it's both men and women with this, both men and women. So it's very important to get tested.
Okay,
you know,
so remember those screenings. Know your family history is really important because you may need to be screened before you turn 50.
Exactly.
What are the behavioral factors, the things that we can do to reduce our risk? I know you mentioned them, but let's go through them again.
Okay. So the first and foremost, you know, we always talk about diet and exercise. So back to that, it's very important to have a diet that more vegetables and fruits, and then whole grains.
So when you say a low fiber diet is a risk factor, then fibrous foods include vegetables, beans, fruits, and whole grains, not white rice,
no.
not white bread, but whole grains.
Whole grains. And they know, and we always say whole grains, you know, at least half of your grains should be whole grains. So we're not saying everything that, you know, all your grains should be whole grains, but at least you have to ensure that half of your grain is whole grain. You eat your fruits, you eat your vegetables, you definitely eat low fat protein. You know, that's very important. You make sure that you maintain your weight. You make sure that you exercise.
Those two things, the weight and the exercise, hugely important for almost all forms of cancer, for heart disease, for diabetes. I mean, everything that, it doesn't necessarily help. It's a hard thing to change.
That's right.
But it is probably that and quitting smoking if you smoke, or reducing drinking if you drink a lot, are some of the things that can help you overall with your health.
And then with smoking, we know Virginia has the quit line, 1-800-QUIT-NOW, that anybody can call and just get free counseling. So there is help out there. There's support out there. Yeah.
There is. Okay. Is there anything else you want to mention? I know March is sort of the month that we draw attention to colorectal cancers, let people know about screening and risk factors.
So, just to sum it up, I just want to encourage, folks out there to make sure that they know, one of the first thing is to know their family history. So if you have a close relative who has had colon cancer, make sure you get tested. Do not wait till you are age 50.
Right,
and then
I think that's very important.
Exactly, and also making sure that you keep up with your annual physicals, because sometimes that's a way that you'll be able to find out, if you have it or not. And again, early detection is always the best option because that's where treatment is likely to be successful. And again, they might find polyps, but not all of them are cancerous. So
Right.
those can be taken care of once you find them. So.
And after that first screening, I mean, you know, I've had that, the GI guy will say, okay, you're clear for 10 years, or you need to come back every 5, or I need to keep a closer look on you. So you really got to get in for that first screening so they can get a good look and see what's going on.
Very important, that's correct.
Okay, so watch for symptoms, know your risk, and take those lifestyle measures that you can take to reduce your risk of this cancer and really, frankly, all cancers and most heart disease.
Yes, because believe it or not, 1 in every 20 Americans will have colon cancer in their lifetime.
And some of them, I mean, there's the very, very aggressive, hits young people, hits them quickly, and then there's colon cancers that old people get that grow slowly that they may never even know they had. But you need to find out.
You need to find out. You need to find out. It's very important to find out.
Okay. Well, thank you, Meena. I appreciate this, and I hope the folks out there are awake and alert to the possibility and take the screening seriously and change those health factors and try to be a little healthier in your diet and exercise. Thanks for watching.